In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the My Reports page on omahapokertraining.com. Now, your reports are going to be a great place for you to go when you want to get an idea of how well you've been playing in the long run, and you want to find out what your trouble areas are so you can go back to the poker game then and address some of those trouble areas. So let's jump into it right now, and I'm going to take a look at the various pages of your reports. So when you go to your reports, the first place you're taken is this overview page. And I'm going to start at the top here in the header. You've got a drop down here for what date range you want to look at. And a lot of the common ones are already shown down below, at least on the overview page here, but this drop down at the top is going to affect all the pages of your reports here. So supposing you only want to look at the last 24 hours, the last 7 days, maybe the last year, and you can even enter a custom date range here where you'll see that calendars appear over here, and you could actually pick a custom date range if you want to look at your results, let's say for the last 2 months or something like that that doesn't already appear in the drop down. The next drop down below that, you can select whether you want to look at your 9 max or 6 max results. Currently there is no way to look at them together combined. You'd have to go back over to your My Saved Hands or My Saved Sessions pages to do that. Now the checkbox next to it here is really important. What you're looking at below are the results from only randomly dealt hands. By that it means that if in the poker game you told our software to only deal you one category of hand, or maybe you froze the button and you always said, I always want to be put under the gun or on the button or in the big blind, those are not randomly dealt hands anymore. Because what would happen is if we showed those down here, they would skew your statistics. Obviously, if you told our software to always deal you double-suited pocket aces, clearly you would be showing a big profit if you got dealt that hand every single time. I mean, I hope you'd be showing a profit. If you wouldn't, then we got other things to talk about. But to avoid skewing the results below, only hands where you were playing the game with randomly dealt hands without freezing the button are going to be shown below. If for some reason you wanted to look at all the hands in your database, you would uncheck this box here. So moving on down below here, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. We look at, for different date ranges, it's going to show how many hands you played, how much in dollars you won per 100 hands, and how much in big blinds you won per 100 hands. That's probably the more important column to look at, because you might have played some of these hands at the $1, $2 stake and some of the hands at the $20, $40 stakes. But the big blinds per 100 hands is always going to reflect your true results in terms of big blinds, which is really the best factor that measures whether you're being a successful long-term winning player or not. Down below that, you've got some graphs you can look at here of your profits over time. And as you can see, you can even hold down your mouse button and you can drag and zoom in on any area of the graph you want to, if you did want to look at a particular date range on the graph. And then when you're finished doing that, there's a button up here in the top right corner that says max, and that will zoom you back out. So moving on, let's go over here to the next page. This is called Performance Categories. Now on APT, we separate all PLO starting hands into 76 different categories. There's 9 super categories, I guess I'll call them, up here. So all 76 categories fit into one of these 9 here, and you click on one of these and it will scroll you down the page to see all the different subcategories in that category there. And for each one of these categories, it will show you how many times a hand from that category was dealt to you, how many times you actually played that hand, which means you actually voluntarily put some money in pre-flop. If you just fold pre-flop without putting any money in, it's even if you were just in the big blind, it's not considered playing that hand. And finally, the big blinds per 100 hands that you've been winning with hands in this category. Now this is very interesting to look at to determine which categories of hands you're most having trouble with. You're going to need a lot of hands in your database before you're going to get statistically accurate results here. You're going to want to play a lot of hands, but after a while, you'll start to see trends. Maybe you're having trouble with, with rundowns or with hands that are, making non-nut flushes. Maybe you're going too far with non-nut flushes. You're going to find trends in here. And when you find a trouble area, you can go back to our game. I'm going to show you really quick how to do this. You can go back to our poker game. Let's suppose you had trouble with these double suited rundowns here. This is category number 5. Obviously, you should be able to win money in the long run with these double suited rundowns. If you're not, it probably means you're not playing them right. Maybe you're making non-nut flushes and non-nut straights and going too far with them and getting trapped with them. So one thing you could do is go back to the poker game and tell it to always deal you category 5. So you just enter that into the little box here. And if you forget that it's category 5, you can just click on this. You'll see there's a link here that'll list all the categories and their category number. So if you do this, the game will just deal you these double suited rundowns and you can play them over and over again. All right, let's go back and let's look at another page here. This page is called the Performance Positions page. Now, Performance Positions page here, you'll see that it lists all the positions around the table. And again, looking at it from big blinds per 100 hands played, it's going to show you how many big blinds per 100 hands you're winning on average. Again, you're going to want to have a lot of hands in your database before you see statistically accurate results here. But when you hover over one of these positions, it's going to show you something very interesting. It's going to show you your current big blinds per 100 hands, also the average big blinds per 100 hands of all players on OPT, and the big blinds per 100 hands that the best players on OPT are winning. And I believe we defined the best players on OPT as the top 10% of all players. So this will give you an idea of how well you are doing compared to the other players on OPT against the bots. Finally, on the performance menu here, we've got performance difficulties. This is going to look at all the different difficulty levels you've played at. And again, same kind of thing. It's going to show you the big blinds per 100 hands that you are winning at each difficulty level. So let's move on here over to the Skills tab now. Now the Skills tab has a bunch of these things down below here. I guess they kind of look like thermometers, and you want to be, there's a recommended range and you want to be in that recommended range. So it's going to be red if you're not in the recommended range, and it's going to be green if you are in the recommended range. The ones that you're not in the recommended range, you want to read up on that statistic and try to find out why not. And looking at the example, this first one here, how often do you see the flop? Again, you can hover over any of these and it's going to show you how often you saw the flop, how often the average player on Omaha Poker Training saw the flop, and how often the best players on Omaha Poker Training saw the flop. So you can compare your numbers with their numbers. So I'm not going to go over all of these different statistics here, but I think as you scroll down here, you'll see they're all very interesting and very informative about where the weaknesses in your game are. The final page in your reports here is called the Hand Analysis page. And on this page, it's simply going to show you the top 5 hands where you won the most in big blinds over, again, this is over the current date range that you've selected up above. It's going to show you the top 5 hands where you lost the most in big blinds. And at the bottom, it's going to show any hands that you tagged. Tagging a hand, if you haven't watched the video yet on how to play the actual poker game, whenever you play a hand on APT, you can tag that hand, which means mark it. You can put it in a category, like hands you want to look over again later, hands where you want to retry it later and try a different strategy. So this will show any of the hands you've tagged and what category you put them into down below. And I believe the top 5 hands where you've won and lost the most, I think that can be useful. If obviously that's results oriented, you might have lost a lot on a hand where you played everything right and it was just you got drawn out on, or it was just bad luck that you got dealt a really good hand where someone had was a cooler of some kind. But it's still, I think, very useful to look at the hands that you lost the most on, just to make sure there wasn't a big mistake you made there that you can improve on next time. So that's about all for your reports. The most important thing to do is just kind of go through your reports here, and it's going to help you find your trouble areas, and then you can go back to the game and focus on those trouble areas to get better in those areas. So that's about it. I hope you're enjoying your membership to APT. Obviously, you can't get to these areas of the reports without a full membership, so hit that Get All Access Pass button, and I'll see you in the next video.